Hello, writers, and welcome to the Author Burnout Coach. Together, we will dismantle the burnout culture in book publishing and reclaim our love of stories. I am your host, Isabel Sterling, and this is episode 1. Welcome, my darling writers. If you are listening to this on the day it drops, hell yeah for being here on day 1. It's also my birthday, so happy 33rd to yours truly. Okay, 33. Okay, moving on. And if you are listening to this sometime in the future, maybe I'm 40 now, who knows? A special welcome to you too. It is never too late to free yourself from burnout, so I am thrilled that you are here. So let's just get right to it, shall we? What the fuck is burnout, and where does it come from? So in 2022, when you Google burnout, you get the following. Burnout is a state of emotional, physical, and mental exhaustion caused by excessive and prolonged stress. It occurs when you feel overwhelmed, emotionally drained, and unable to meet constant demands. Okay, here is how I see that showing up for writers. So for writers who are early on and have a goal of traditional publication, which I will just note is the main focus of this podcast because that is the publishing ecosystem in which I live. So when you are early on and that is your goal, the pre-agent burnout, that settles in when you start to feel this pressured urgency to get an agent. So that initial joy of writing has faded some. And you still have bouts of it. It's not like you're in miserable burnout land 24/7, but the initial sort of joy has faded. And now you're sort of left with this feeling that you need to hurry and that you have to get ready to query as fast as possible. And you know what? You can hang out with those loved ones later because this book has to get out now, or you'll never get there. It's very urgent. It feels very, I don't know, your body feels like very tense of like, I have to. It's a very sort of anxious energy. And it's very likely that while you're doing this, you're telling yourself that once you get an agent, then you can slow down and all of these feelings of not being good enough are going to go away. Spoiler alert, they don't go away. Gotta love it. Okay, so once you've signed your first agent, and I do say your first agent intentionally here, I literally at this point in my publishing career, folks who are sort of like, who are like me, have published more than one book, I don't know anybody who is still working with their first agent, and that is 100% okay. We're going to talk more about that in future episodes, but I just want you to know that, this is a business and our needs change and that's good. Okay. Anyway, so you sign with your first agent and, maybe you celebrate this achievement. Maybe you call up everybody who and be like, woohoo, I got an agent. Yay. Confetti falls from the sky. But if you are in burnout mode, it's likely that you've shared this good news with a lot of caveats. So you'll say like, yeah, this is so exciting, but it doesn't mean the book will sell. Or yeah, it's really great, but it took me 5 novels to get here. Yeah, I'm happy, but the real hard work is just beginning. So each of these messages, these statements you say to others, they may be true. It is true that getting an agent doesn't guarantee a book is going to sell. It's true maybe that it took you X number of novels to get an agent. But all of those but statements, all of those buts are actually born from a lifetime of messages that we're not good enough. So we, instead of just celebrating and being like, hell yeah, look at me, I got an agent, ooh, instead of going there, we have to bring it down a little bit. Because those of us who are socialized as women, queer folks, BIPOC writers, we've all lived in this world that constantly tries to tell us that we're not good enough. So without even realizing it, we start to dim our joy and we dim our accomplishments. Now, I will note that part of that is a genuine fear response rooted in the very recent and ongoing history of visibility opening up marginalized folks to physical violence and, online harassment. But that's all a podcast for another day. All you need to know for right now is that your brain just deserves some compassion and you just want to notice wherever you achieve something and then try to immediately discount it. This is actually something I've seen in some of my clients when I coach them. They'll say like, oh, I have this big thing coming out, but here's all the reasons why it's not what I wanted it to be. And I have to stop them and say like, you have a book coming out, or you have a movie coming out, or you have a short story anthology coming out, whatever it is. How often do you actually enjoy that instead of immediately going to all the ways that it's not right? And you can sometimes hear it in the way people talk about it. They don't actually let themselves feel excited or feel proud. So, slight tangent, moving back on. Okay, so let's say your debut novel, it sells to a publisher, woohoo, confetti raining down, it's the best. But then your brain is going to throw some of these same types of caveats. Well, it won't be out for 2 years. There's still so much work to do. I didn't get the advance size that I was hoping for. And then on top of that, we layer in all of the ways we've been taught to people please. So we want to impress our editors and prove that they didn't make a mistake when they acquired our book. We think, ooh, I want to be that author who only needs one round of content edits because I do such a good job. Which that may just be me. That definitely happened for me in my first book. I really was like, ooh, if I'm really good, I will finish this the first time and I won't need to do it again. And that's just not how it works. And then, my goodness, when we get to the readers, holy hell is that a mess for our brains. So even though we know intellectually that we cannot please all readers, we know that our favorite books have 1-star reviews. Even with that, it feels so fucking bad to know that there are people out there who are going to hate our books. For example, I write queer books. So if there are homophobes who hate my books, I don't give a fuck. You can hate it. You hate it because you don't like queer people. Fine. What hurts is so for me, like when there's queer readers who don't connect to my book, that's when my brain goes, oh no, problem, all the alarm bells, this is terrible. So we know intellectually our books aren't for everyone. Even within sort of like who we think our books are for. Like for me, my books, I would love for everyone to read them, but the people I really write for are queer girls. And when they don't like my book, oh my gosh, fucking, it's terrible, right? Our brains are like, oh no, the sales aren't where I want them to be. And this was my only chance. And now I'm going to mess this whole thing up. And what if nobody knows about my book? And on and on and on. And if you manage to get through all of that without being completely worn out and exhausted and ready to hibernate for 10 years, there are still burnout traps post-debut. Because now at this point, we're not all shiny and new in the publishing industry. We have sales numbers to contend with. And somehow, no matter what those numbers are, we are in full panic. Just think about this. If the numbers are low, and really what the fuck is low, who knows? It's all relative. But if our numbers are quote unquote low, we worry we won't sell again. And then on the other extreme, let's say they're amazing and we hit the New York Times and our publisher sends us some fancy, we go on a cool tour and we get presents from our publisher because we're selling so amazing and we've achieved the big, everybody's like, oh my gosh, you did it. You did the thing. You have the best book of the year, which sounds great. But then our lovely brains panic because then it's, what if I can't sustain those numbers? What if the next book is a flop? What if I'm a one-hit wonder? What if this is the peak of my career and I can't grow with the next one? And what if readers feel betrayed by the sequel? And then for some folks, usually not the New York Times folks, but for some writers, they do publish and it's going okay. And then they're like, oh my gosh, I'm going to disappear. So they sign a bajillion contracts and they do IP and they do their own books and they do like 70 different genres. And then they have so many contracts that they're just full on exhaustion, completely burnt out. And it gets to the point where it's really affecting their physical health. So my friends, we're going to take a deep breath. I feel like some of you need a second one. We're going to do that again. Inhale and exhale. Even just talking about all of that gets my body so stressed out. Like my shoulders are up in my ears and my stomach was in knots before I took a second to breathe. I just want you to know that it's okay, that this trajectory that I just explained is not something that has to happen to you. And if it already has happened to you, nothing has gone wrong. You're not doomed to forever repeat this cycle. So what I want us to do is pull apart those experiences that I just talked about, and we're going to find in those stories what's causing the burnout. And here's what I want you to know. Every situation is different. The facts about what's going on in your writing life, the circumstances of your situation, those aren't actually the things that cause you to feel burnt out. And we know this because burnout can exist at every stage. There are people who get through the stages without overworking. And two debut authors, for example, can have completely polar opposite experiences with their book and their editing and the sales and have the same level of burnout, which means burnout, that feeling of intense mental, emotional, and physical exhaustion, that doesn't come from what we're doing, but from the beliefs that drive what we're doing. So I'm going to say that again and then give you an analogy. So again, burnout doesn't come from the what we are doing. It comes from the beliefs that drive what we're doing. Okay, so here is our analogy. And we're going to go reading because I imagine if you're here, you probably like to read. Okay, so you've stayed up reading until 3 a.m. Do you feel exhausted and miserable, or do you feel exhilarated and excited? We can't know that based solely on the facts of you staying up late. And that is because it depends on why you stayed up late. So if you stayed up because you were thinking, oh, fuck, I need to finish this book before my class discussion or else I'm going to look like a total failure in front of my professor, you are probably going to feel like hell and you're going to be fighting sleep the whole time you're reading. On the other hand, you start reading a book and you fall in love with the characters and all night you're going, ooh, just one more. Ooh, just one more. Oh my gosh, that twist. One more. And then suddenly it's 3 a.m. and the book is finished and you just feel this like surge of, oh my gosh, what an experience. The thing that's so wild is that those two experiences, the one where you're like, ooh, one more. Oh my gosh, I can't put this down. And the experience where you are fighting exhaustion, you are just feeling miserable the whole time. That can actually happen with the same book. The same person can read the same book and have two very different experiences because of the way you're thinking about it and the why that you're doing it. So again, my dear friends, please do not twist this and use it to blame yourself for being burnt out. Like seriously, fuck that noise. And also, it's truly not your fault, okay? And here's why. Let's imagine for a second that your brain is a computer. So as you grow up, society implants a bunch of software into that processing system. And it does this through media and through family and friends and through our educational systems that are like steeped in like colonialism and white supremacy and total nonsense. And all these different places, it's just like plugging in all of this software and all of this lines of code. So then you go out into the world and you're running on all of this software. And then so you make the logical assumption that this is just how the world works because you can collect evidence that, oh yeah, That worked, that worked, that worked. In school, I was praised for getting things right, and I was, punished for getting things wrong. I was praised for behaving a certain way, and not so you're constantly collecting the evidence to prove all that software true. So we don't question the messages that tell us we need to do things the right way and the correct way. We don't even think to question who gets to decide what's correct. The authority is outside of us. We're taught, that image of like allo cishet, white male, able-bodied, that person is who has authority. We're just sort of like taught that. It's installed. So when the world around us tells us to prioritize productivity above all, when it rewards being busy 24/7, we just check our pre-installed software and go, yep, that sounds right. And so we ignore the messages coming from our intuition and our body that we need to slow down. So the good news in all of this is that we do have the capacity to uninstall that software and put in new coding. Or like however computers work. I don't actually know computers. But that doesn't mean it's easy, okay? There are thousands and thousands of lines of that brain coding stuff. And sometimes it's really jammed in there, and it's all sort of tied to other stuff, and it's in knots, and it's stuck, and it's like hard to just pull out. You can't just yank it out and never feel it again. And it's also tricky because sometimes it's hard to tell which thoughts you want to keep and which ones you don't, because they can feel so true. We've spent our whole lives collecting evidence to prove those things true. So of course, it doesn't feel like an optional thought. It doesn't feel like something that you believe. It just feels like the factual truth. It's not going to go away overnight. It's a lifelong process, but you can get some relief from this right away. And that comes through awareness. So my goal for you this week is just to become more aware of the messages in your brain. So you can journal, either long form or just in like little bullet points. You can talk them out with a friend. If you're super busy, you can just like mentally notice them. And I want you to look for things like when your brain tells you that you're being lazy, that you need to be working harder. I want you just to notice that those thoughts are there. And no judging, please, no judging. But just notice anytime your brain is like, we need to hurry. There's a limited amount of, spots in publishing. So I have to hurry and get this done so I can get that spot. Any of those things that are sort of pushing you to work past what feels good to you, or to work from a place of like urgency and worry and stress. Just notice that it's there. As we notice it, we'll be able to pull out those lines of code and rewrite them. So, in summary, burnout. What the fuck is burnout? Burnout comes from the reasons we do things, not the things we do. And the reasons, those are just thoughts that we tell ourselves about why we do something. Again, imagine the difference of staying up late to cram for a test versus staying up late because you've fallen in love with a book. So again, your goal this week, I want you to become aware of what your brain is telling you. Whenever there's those have tos, I have to hurry, I have to write more, I have to write every day, I have to keep my publisher happy. You can just feel the anxiousness that kind of rises up with that. Just notice that it's there. And over time, we're going to learn to hit delete on those bullshit lies and put in something better, okay? Oh, in celebration of turning 33, I did release 3 episodes for you today. This is the first of 3.